The small apartment was quiet except for the soft sounds of the city outside. A young father, worn from a long day at work, came in carrying his bag and a small grocery bag. His daughter, no more than 8, was sitting at the kitchen table, her little hands busy drawing, her brow furrowed in concentration. He watched her for a moment, taking in her tired eyes, the way her small shoulders sagged under the weight of her school bag, and the faint lines of worry on her young face. He sighed, setting the groceries down. Life had never been easy for them, and some days felt heavier than others. The father worked long hours at a job that barely covered the rent and food, but he did it with a steady heart, because every moment he spent working was for her. She was the most important part of his world, and he would bear any burden if it meant she could smile. Tonight, like many nights before, he wanted her to feel safe, cared for, and loved. The girl looked up and gave him a small smile, one that lit up the room in its own quiet way. "Hi, Dad," she said softly, her voice carrying a note of exhaustion. She pushed her drawings to the side and rubbed her eyes. "Hey, kiddo," he replied, bending down to pick up her small hand. "Long day?" She nodded. "My back hurts a little, and my feet are tired." He looked at her little frame and thought about the long day she had at school, followed by the walk to her after-school class and the crowded bus ride home. She had spent her day learning, running, and trying to keep up with friends older than her. Her little body was worn out, and he felt a pang of sadness. He wanted to take all her pain away, but he knew he could only do what he could with the life they had. He knelt beside her chair. "Come on, let's get you ready for bed," he said gently. He took her hand, guiding her to the small bedroom they shared. The room was modest, a narrow bed pressed against the wall, a dresser that was a little chipped, and a small lamp that gave off a soft glow. Despite its size, it was their safe space, filled with the warmth of their love. The father noticed the way she tried to climb onto the bed. She struggled a bit, her small legs and tired body making it hard to settle in. He saw her hesitation, the way she shifted from side to side, trying to make herself comfortable. He wanted to speak, to tell her she didn't have to worry about anything, but he saw her resolve. She was trying to be brave, as she often did, even when her little body wanted rest. He smiled softly and knelt beside the bed. "Hey, you don't have to struggle. I've got an idea. Why don't you lie down here and I'll make sure you're cozy?" He reached for the blanket and tucked it gently around her shoulders. She looked at him, eyes wide. "Really, you don't mind?" He shook his head, smiling. "I don't mind at all. I just want you to rest." He moved a small pillow under her head, making sure she was comfortable. She sighed, a sound of relief and gratitude, and closed her eyes. Her small chest rose and fell slowly as she drifted off to sleep. The father watched her for a long moment, memorizing the curve of her cheek, the way her hair fell gently across the pillow, and the softness of her breathing. Once he was sure she was asleep, he looked around the room. The bed was too small for both of them, and he didn't want to disturb her rest. So he found a blanket on the floor, spread it carefully, and sat down with his back against the wall. It wasn't comfortable, but it was better than letting her lie on the floor. His body ached from the long day and the cold wooden floor pressed against him, but he didn't care. He felt warmth in his heart, knowing she was finally resting well. As the night went on, he stayed awake, listening to the quiet city, watching the small movements of his daughter as she slept. He thought about her future, about the dream she might have, and how he could give her the world even if all he had was himself. Memories of their days together flashed in his mind, the laughter in the park, the small victories at school, and even the tears they had shared. Every moment was precious, and he wanted to protect her from the hardships that life often brought. Sleep eventually came to him in short bursts, his dreams filled with her laughter and her small victories. He woke often to check if she was still comfortable, adjusting the blanket or smoothing her hair. The small sacrifices he made were nothing compared to the joy of seeing her safe and happy. He knew that this was what being a father was truly about, putting someone else's needs before your own without expecting anything in return. Morning light slowly filtered through the curtains. The girl stirred, opening her eyes to the soft glow of the sun. She stretched and yawned, her small body now feeling rested and ready to face the day. The father watched her quietly, his own body stiff and sore, but his heart full. She smiled at him, a radiant, innocent smile that made every ache in his body worth it. "Good morning, Dad," she said, her voice still soft but filled with cheer. "Thank you for letting me sleep well." He smiled, rubbing the sleep from his eyes. "Good morning, kiddo. You look ready for the day." They shared a quiet moment together, a bond strengthened by the simple act of love and sacrifice. Outside, the city was coming alive, but inside their small apartment there was warmth, comfort, and a sense of hope. The father knew the challenges of the day ahead would be many, but seeing his daughter rested and happy gave him the strength to face them. In that simple, quiet room, the story of their love, sacrifice, and unspoken understanding was written in every small gesture, in the way he watched over her, in the care with which he made her comfortable, and in the silent promise that he would always put her first. And as they moved forward into the day, neither fully understood how small acts of care could ripple outward, touching lives in ways they could never imagine, setting the stage for moments of recognition, kindness, and the power of humanity itself. The father watched his daughter leave for school with a small backpack slung over her shoulders. She waved at him, her smile bright despite the slight tiredness lingering from yesterday's long day. The father waved back, his heart full but heavy. Life was never simple for them. Every day was a challenge, a test of endurance, patience, and love. But moments like this, seeing her safe and happy, made every struggle worthwhile. After she left, he stood by the window for a long time, watching her tiny figure disappear down the street. He thought about the night before, about how she had slept peacefully while he had lain on the floor, barely comfortable, barely resting. He didn't regret it for a second. Her comfort, her safety, and her happiness had been worth every ache in his body. He reminded himself that being a parent meant sacrifices, often invisible to the world, but essential to the well-being of the child. The apartment was quiet once again. He tidied up a few things, making the small space feel a little more welcoming. He straightened the blankets, washed the dishes from last night, and glanced around at the little reminders of his daughter's presence. The scattered crayons on the table, the half-finished drawings on the fridge, and the tiny socks lying near the bed. Each of these things was a testament to the life they shared, to the joy he found in the little moments. He made himself a simple breakfast, but his appetite was faint. His mind was on her, wondering if she had eaten well at school, if she had enjoyed her day so far, if anyone had been kind to her. He knew he couldn't be with her every moment, but he had to trust that the world was gentle enough for her. And yet every small worry tugged at him, a reminder that love often comes hand in hand with anxiety. Later in the morning, he prepared for his work. The job was not easy. Long hours, little pay, and constant exhaustion were his companions. But he never complained. He knew that working hard was the only way to provide for his daughter. He dressed quickly, grabbed his worn-out bag, and left the apartment. The streets were busy, full of people hurrying along their routines, barely noticing the small struggles of those around them. But he moved with a purpose, his love for his daughter driving him forward with steady determination. The day was long and tiring. He lifted boxes, carried heavy loads, and faced the occasional impatience of customers or colleagues. His body ached and his mind often drifted to his daughter. He imagined her in her classroom, raising her hand, smiling at a friend, or quietly working on her studies. The thought of her gave him the energy to continue, even when his body begged him to rest. Every time he closed his eyes for a brief moment, he pictured her sleeping peacefully the night before, her small chest rising and falling with ease, and he felt a sense of pride and purpose that no amount of money could buy. When he finally returned home in the evening, the apartment was still and quiet. He carried a small bag of groceries, the weight of it light compared to the weight of responsibility he carried in his heart. He found his daughter sitting at the table again, a bit tired but happy to see him. She had already started on a small homework assignment, her little hands moving carefully over the paper. "Hi, Dad," she said, looking up at him with a bright smile. "Did you have a good day?" He smiled, setting the groceries down. "It was a long day, but I'm glad to be home now." "How was school?" She hesitated for a moment. "It was okay. I liked art class, but I'm really tired." He knelt beside her, noticing the way her small body drooped with fatigue. He didn't want her to struggle to rest again like the night before. He knew he had to find a way to make her comfortable, to show her that her well-being mattered more than his own. So he gently helped her stand and led her to the bedroom. The small bed wasn't enough for both of them, But he knew he could find a solution. He spread the blanket on the floor, careful to make it soft and cozy. He wanted her to have the best rest possible, even if it meant he would have to sacrifice his own comfort. "Here, you sleep on the bed again tonight," he said gently, adjusting the pillow under her head. She looked up at him with surprise and gratitude. "Really, Dad? You don't mind?" He shook his head, smiling warmly. "I don't mind at all. I just want you to be comfortable." She sighed in relief and snuggled under the blanket, her eyes closing almost immediately. The father watched her for a long moment, making sure she was truly settled. Then he laid down on the blanket he had spread on the floor, feeling the chill of the apartment against his body. His muscles ached and the floor was hard, but he barely noticed. All that mattered was that she was resting peacefully. As he lay there, he thought about the small sacrifices he made every day. He often worked long hours, skipped meals, or went without sleep to ensure she had what she needed. These acts went unnoticed by the world, but they were expressions of a deep, unwavering love. He reflected on the challenges they had faced together, moving from apartment to apartment, stretching every penny, and finding ways to create joy even in hardship. Each struggle had strengthened their bond, creating an unspoken understanding between father and daughter. The night stretched on, quiet and calm. He listened to the soft breathing of his daughter, feeling a profound sense of connection. He thought about the future, wondering how he could give her more opportunities, a better life, and more moments of comfort. He knew the path was difficult, but he also knew that every sacrifice, every small act of care, was shaping her world in meaningful ways. As the father drifted into a light sleep on the floor, his mind was filled with hopes and dreams. He imagined her growing up with confidence, kindness, and resilience. He imagined her facing challenges with courage, knowing that she was deeply loved and supported, and he promised himself silently but firmly that he would continue to put her needs first no matter how difficult it became. Morning came once again, soft and golden. The daughter stirred, stretching her small body and smiling at the sight of her father still lying on the floor. She had slept soundly, feeling safe and cared for. The father's heart swelled with emotion, knowing that his quiet act of love had given her the rest she needed. He watched her get ready for school, her energy renewed, her smile bright. The small apartment, though modest and worn, was filled with warmth, care, and the quiet power of selfless love. The father knew that his sacrifices were only part of the journey, but he also knew that every small act mattered. Each night he spent on the floor, each moment he put her comfort above his own, was a testament to the depth of his love. And though the world outside moved quickly and often ignored acts of quiet heroism, he understood that love in its simplest form was always noticed by those who mattered most. As the daughter waved goodbye, ready for another day at school, he watched her go with a heart full of hope. He knew the challenges of the day ahead would be many, but he also knew that moments like these, when love and sacrifice intertwined, made life meaningful. And as he prepared for his own day, he carried with him the quiet strength that comes from putting someone else's happiness before your own, a strength that no hardship could ever diminish. The morning sun spilled softly into the small apartment as the father prepared breakfast. The little sounds of his daughter moving around the kitchen brought a gentle warmth to the air. She hummed quietly, arranging her food and taking small bites with a thoughtful expression. The father watched her with a mixture of pride and exhaustion. Every day he saw her grow stronger, braver, and more thoughtful, and he knew that the small sacrifices he made were giving her a foundation she could build her future on. After breakfast, they both got ready for their day. The father kissed her forehead, giving her the encouragement she needed to face school. She grabbed her backpack and waved, already full of energy despite her usual tiredness. He waved back, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction in knowing she had slept well the night before. It was a small thing, but it mattered more than any other success. Her happiness and well-being were his victories. The father returned to the apartment after dropping her off at school. Today, he had a few errands to run, small things that he often postponed because work and exhaustion left him little time. He picked up a few groceries, checked bills, and did what he could to keep their life organized and stable. Each small step felt like a triumph over the daily struggles that seemed endless. By midday, he went back to work, his mind half on the job and half on his daughter. He wondered if she had eaten well, if she had laughed with her friends, and if she felt cared for. His thoughts carried him through the long hours, giving him a sense of purpose that no paycheck could match. He endured aches and fatigue because the thought of her comfort pushed him forward. Each lift of a box, each task completed was done with the image of her peaceful sleep in mind. When he returned home, the apartment was quiet, the little world they shared still and familiar. He placed his bag down carefully and took a deep breath. This quiet allowed him to think about the night before. He remembered the look on his daughter's face when he let her sleep on the bed while he lay on the floor. Her small smile, the relief in her eyes, and the peace she radiated stayed with him all day. He went about the evening chores with a steady rhythm, making sure the apartment was ready for another night. He prepared a simple meal, checked the small laundry pile, and tidied up the room. Even in these routine tasks, his thoughts wandered to her, wondering if each little effort was making her life a little easier. He had grown used to quiet acts of love unnoticed by others but meaningful beyond measure. The daughter came home from school, tired but happy. She rushed to her father, showing him her small achievements from the day. A drawing she had made, a story she had written, a small problem she had solved. He listened carefully, asking questions and celebrating her efforts, showing that every small success mattered deeply to him. He knew these were the building blocks of her confidence, and that his attention and encouragement were as valuable as anything else he could provide. As night approached, he thought again about how to make her comfortable. The apartment was still small, the bed not enough for both, but he didn't hesitate. He prepared the bed for her, tucked in the blankets, and spread a blanket for himself on the floor. He wanted her rest to be undisturbed, her comfort ensured, and her sleep peaceful. She climbed onto the bed, her face lighting up with the recognition of her father's love and sacrifice. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered softly, almost as if she knew how much effort it took for him to let her sleep well. He smiled, his body aching from the day but his heart full. "You're welcome, kiddo. Sleep well," he said, smoothing her hair gently. He lay down on the floor, the hard surface pressing against him, but he barely noticed. All that mattered was her peace and comfort. He drifted into a light sleep, still attentive to her breathing, ready to adjust the blanket or pillow if needed. In the quiet of the night, small things began to happen beyond the walls of their apartment. Neighbors who had noticed the father's selflessness on previous occasions began to take notice of the little sacrifices he made. Some had seen him helping his daughter carry her school bag. Others had witnessed him patiently listening to her stories, and some had simply admired his quiet dedication. These small observations, often unnoticed by the wider world, were quietly shared among the community. Stories of his dedication, the way he put his daughter first, began to spread softly, word by word. By early morning, a few people started talking about the father's acts of love on social media, sharing small, heartwarming glimpses of his life. Pictures of the little apartment, the father carrying groceries, and moments of quiet care for his daughter were posted, with simple captions celebrating his selflessness. Strangers from nearby neighborhoods began commenting, expressing admiration and empathy. Some recalled their own parents' sacrifices, feeling a connection to the story and a desire to support this quiet hero. The father, unaware of this growing attention, continued his routine. He watched his daughter leave for school, went about his errands, and worked hard at his job. His mind was only on the needs of the day, on providing stability and comfort, without realizing that the story of his sacrifice was beginning to reach far beyond their small apartment. Even as he performed ordinary acts of care, the quiet ripples of his selflessness were creating a growing awareness among the community. People who had never spoken to him personally were moved by his story. They felt inspired by the devotion of a father willing to sleep on the floor to ensure his daughter rested well. His story was a reminder that true love is often expressed in small, silent acts rather than grand gestures. The night came again, and he prepared the apartment for rest. The daughter climbed onto the bed, her small body curling under the blankets, safe and warm. The father spread his blanket on the floor and lay down, reflecting on the day. He thought about how simple moments like letting her rest on the bed could create peace and happiness. He didn't consider it extraordinary. It was simply the right thing to do. Yet in doing so, he was touching hearts in ways he would never imagine. As he drifted to sleep, he had no idea that by morning, Cars might gather outside their apartment, neighbors might stop by, and strangers might offer small gestures of support and recognition. All he knew was that he had done what any parent would do. He had loved and cared for his child without hesitation, without expectation, and with all his heart. In the quiet of the night, as the city hummed softly beyond their walls, the father's story was quietly taking shape. His small acts of love were being noticed, appreciated, and shared. And while he slept on the floor, unaware of the attention growing around him, he had already achieved something remarkable. He had shown the purest form of love, unselfish, patient, and unwavering. This love, once recognized by the community, would soon create a wave of kindness, gratitude, and support, changing not only his life but also the lives of those around him. The morning air was crisp, carrying the soft sounds of the city stirring to life. The father went about his routine, preparing breakfast and helping his daughter get ready for school. He noticed the bright sunlight catching her hair and the spark in her eyes as she talked about her plans for the day. Everything seemed normal, but beyond their small apartment, a story was quietly spreading. Neighbors who had observed his quiet acts of care began sharing his story more widely, and some even took to social media, posting pictures and messages about the devoted father who had slept on the floor so his daughter could rest. By late morning, there was a shift outside the apartment building. People who had never met him began to stop by, drawn by the story of his dedication and love. Some came out of curiosity, some came out of admiration, and some simply wanted to offer support. Cars started gathering along the street, slowly at first, then in increasing numbers. Neighbors began waving at each other, sharing smiles and whispers about the father who had inspired so many hearts. Inside, the father was unaware of the growing attention. He worked quietly, tidying the apartment, making small repairs, and preparing a simple lunch. His daughter played nearby, her laughter filling the room with warmth. He occasionally glanced at her, marveling at her energy and resilience. He had no idea that outside a crowd of people was gathering, all moved by the story of the small, quiet sacrifices he made for her. By mid-afternoon, more people arrived. Some brought groceries, small gifts, or handwritten notes of encouragement. Others simply stood outside watching, hoping for a chance to express their gratitude or admiration. The father, still unaware, continued his day, focused on providing comfort and stability for his daughter. The apartment, once quiet and modest, had become the center of attention, a symbol of selfless love that resonated with many. Neighbors peeked through windows and doors, trying to catch a glimpse of the father and daughter who had inspired them. Cars lined the street, some honking softly in support, others stopping to leave small packages of food or essentials. People shared stories with one another about their own parents' sacrifices, connecting emotionally with the father's quiet heroism. The community, once disconnected and busy with their own lives, began to feel a sense of unity and compassion. Inside, the father helped his daughter with her homework, completely oblivious to the unfolding scene outside. She asked questions, showed him her drawings, and spoke about her day at school. He listened attentively, giving her guidance and encouragement. Every smile she gave him, every word of thanks reminded him why he endured exhaustion, discomfort, and long days. Little did he know that those same acts of love were now touching the hearts of many beyond their small apartment. As evening approached, the crowd outside grew larger. News of his selflessness had spread further through social media and word of mouth. Local volunteers arrived offering food, blankets, and small toys for the daughter. Neighbors who had once only exchanged polite greetings now spoke to each other warmly, exchanging stories and advice. The father's story had become a ripple of kindness, inspiring people to reconnect with their own sense of community and generosity. The father finally noticed the noise outside. Curious, he went to the window and saw the street filled with cars and people. His heart raced as he realized what was happening. He stepped outside cautiously, unsure what to expect. The crowd parted slightly, and he saw strangers smiling at him, waving and holding up small signs of support. Some called out words of encouragement, thanking him for the quiet acts of love that had gone unnoticed for so long. The father felt overwhelmed. Tears filled his eyes as he processed the sight before him. These people, who he had never met or expected recognition from, had gathered to honor his dedication to his daughter. He felt a mixture of humility, gratitude, and amazement. He realized that the small selfless acts he performed daily were not invisible. They had inspired a wave of kindness and recognition that extended far beyond his apartment walls. His daughter, sensing the emotion, clung to his hand. Together, they looked at the crowd, feeling the warmth of human connection and the power of shared compassion. The father spoke softly to her, explaining that people were grateful for his love and care. She smiled, her eyes wide with wonder, realizing that the simple acts of love between a father and daughter could touch so many hearts. Neighbors and strangers alike approached him, offering food, supplies, and words of encouragement. Local businesses sent small packages, volunteers offered to help with household chores, and some families shared stories of their own sacrifices, creating a sense of solidarity and understanding. The father was humbled, never expecting such recognition or generosity. He had only acted out of love, not seeking fame or reward, and yet the world responded with kindness in return. The evening stretched on, filled with warmth, laughter, and heartfelt conversations. People shared smiles and stories, and the father and daughter felt a deep sense of belonging. The apartment, once just a quiet, modest home, had become a symbol of selfless love, inspiring others to consider their own acts of kindness. The father realized that the small sacrifices, the moments of care, and the attention he gave to his daughter had not only shaped her life but also touched the lives of those around him. As night fell, the crowd slowly dispersed, leaving behind a sense of community and connection that lingered in the air. The father and daughter returned inside, their hearts full and spirits lifted. He reflected on the day, amazed at how a simple act of love, letting his daughter rest while he slept on the floor, had grown into something much larger than he could have imagined. He understood that love, when genuine and selfless, had the power to inspire, unite, and heal. That night, the father prepared the bed for his daughter once again. She climbed in with a smile, feeling safe and cherished. He spread his blanket on the floor, his body weary but his heart overflowing with pride and gratitude. As he lay down, he thought about the ripple effect of love and kindness and how one simple act could touch countless lives. The father drifted into sleep, comforted by the knowledge that his sacrifices mattered not just to his daughter, but to an entire community that now recognized the quiet heroism in everyday love. The morning sun streamed through the small apartment, painting everything in golden light. The father stirred awake on the floor, his body aching slightly but his heart lighter than it had felt in a long time. He had slept poorly on the hard floor as he had many nights before, but today was different. The day held a sense of hope and promise that he could feel in the quiet moments before the world woke. His daughter stirred beside him, stretching and yawning with a bright smile. She had slept well as always, thanks to his sacrifices. Today, however, there was a special excitement in the air. The father had no idea just how much had changed overnight. The small acts of love he had performed quietly for years had now begun to transform their lives in ways he could never have imagined. He prepared a simple breakfast while thinking about the events of the previous day. The community's response had been overwhelming. Cars had lined the street, neighbors had stopped by with gifts and words of encouragement, and strangers had offered help and support. His quiet life, once unnoticed, had become a story that inspired others to appreciate the power of love and sacrifice. He had never sought recognition, but the outpouring of kindness touched him deeply. The daughter ate her breakfast with enthusiasm, chatting happily about the little gestures she noticed outside the apartment window yesterday. She had seen people waving, smiling, and even leaving small presents at the door. The father listened, amazed by her keen observation and innocence. She was growing up with a heart full of empathy, noticing small acts of kindness just as he had taught her through his own actions. As the day went on, volunteers came by to help organize the support that had been sent. Local families brought groceries, blankets, and school supplies, ensuring that both father and daughter had everything they needed. Neighbors who had once been distant strangers now exchanged greetings, sharing warm smiles and words of encouragement. The father found himself humbled and grateful, realizing that his small acts of love had created a ripple effect, bringing people together and inspiring compassion. The father spent the day carefully sorting through the gifts, making notes of the people who had taken the time to help. He felt a deep sense of connection with the community, appreciating that even small gestures could have a profound impact on someone's life. His daughter helped him organize the supplies, her small hands moving quickly and carefully. Together they laughed and worked, enjoying the warmth of the community's kindness. Throughout the day, more people arrived to offer help, some bringing meals, others offering to assist with chores, and a few just coming by to meet the father and daughter in person. Each interaction reminded him of the goodness in people, and he felt a sense of hope that he had not experienced in years. He realized that love and dedication, even when expressed in small, quiet ways, could inspire others to act with generosity and empathy. As evening approached, the father took a moment to sit with his daughter. They watched the sun dip below the horizon, casting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink. He reflected on the journey they had taken together, the long days, the small sacrifices, the moments of exhaustion, and the quiet acts of love. He realized that each struggle had strengthened their bond, teaching both of them the value of patience, care, and selflessness. The daughter looked up at him and asked, "Dad, why did all these people help us?" "We didn't know them," he smiled, taking her small hand in his, "because they saw the love we share and they were inspired by it. Sometimes when people see kindness and selflessness, it reminds them of the goodness in the world, and they want to be part of it." She nodded thoughtfully, her eyes wide with understanding. "So just being kind can make a big difference?" "Yes," he said softly. "Even small acts of love can change lives, not just yours but others too." That night, as he prepared the bed for his daughter, he felt a sense of peace he had never known before. The apartment, once a quiet and modest place, now held the warmth of community and the evidence of human kindness. The father spread his blanket on the floor, knowing that the comfort he provided his daughter had now multiplied through the generosity of others. He lay down, feeling the exhaustion of the day fade in the glow of hope. His daughter climbed into the bed, her small body curling under the blankets. She looked at him with a smile that reflected trust, love, and joy. "Thank you, Dad," she whispered, her voice soft and sincere. "Thank you for everything," he smiled back, feeling a deep warmth in his chest. "You don't have to thank me, kiddo. I love you, and that's all that matters." As they settled into the quiet of the night, the father thought about the journey that had brought them here. The struggles they faced had been real and difficult, but each moment of love and sacrifice had built a foundation for hope and connection. He realized that the world could be harsh, but kindness had the power to shine through even the darkest times. Their lives, once marked by hardship and quiet endurance, were now touched by the generosity of strangers, the warmth of neighbors, and the beauty of human compassion. In the days that followed, the father and daughter experienced a transformation. The apartment became a hub of connection, with neighbors and volunteers stopping by regularly to share meals, stories, and support. The daughter's school life improved as well, with new friends and encouragement from teachers who had heard about her father's dedication. The father found stability in his job, and the community continued to provide guidance and assistance, ensuring that both of them could thrive. The father realized that his life had changed, not because of wealth or status, but because of the simple, quiet acts of love he had performed without expectation. Sleeping on the floor so his daughter could rest had been a small daily sacrifice, but it had sparked a chain reaction of empathy, generosity, and connection that transformed their world. He understood that love, when genuine and selfless, was never wasted. One evening, the father and daughter sat together, looking through the letters and messages they had received from people who had been touched by their story. Some were from people nearby, others from distant places, all expressing gratitude, admiration, and encouragement. The father read each one carefully, sharing the messages with his daughter. She listened with wide eyes, feeling proud of the love that had grown between them and the impact it had on others. "Dad," she said finally, "I think we helped people too, even though we didn't know it." He nodded, tears forming in his eyes. "Yes, kiddo. Every act of love matters, no matter how small. And the more we give, the more the world changes around us." That night, as they fell asleep, the apartment was filled with a sense of peace, hope, and love. The father knew that life would still bring challenges, but he felt prepared to face them with his daughter by his side, and a community that had shown the power of kindness. He had learned that even the quietest acts of love could ripple outward, creating a wave of hope and inspiration that changed lives forever. And so, the father and daughter continued their journey together, strengthened by love, guided by compassion, and surrounded by a community that recognized the beauty of selflessness. The simple act of sleeping on the floor so his daughter could rest had become a story of transformation, proving that true love, patience, and sacrifice could illuminate the lives of many, and that even the smallest gestures of care could create extraordinary change.